go through different phases. These basically describe the different steps that teachers would go through and what's going on in their mind as we introduce something new into their world. And so you see here, there's this teacher here. And, he becomes aware of the smartboard for the very first time, whether it's at a PD workshop, he's walking down the halls and he sees someone using it, he reads something, he goes to a conference, wherever it is. Stage one is awareness, becomes aware of it. And the first thing they ask is, that's interesting, that's curious, what is that? And so they seek knowledge, they seek information about what is that tool, what is that technology. Now here comes the important part. They start framing a perception about, whether or not they feel that's something that's relevant to them, that they should inquire further or not. And so the key things that are going through their minds are questions like, what's the relative advantage, right? So in other words, what does this thing have to offer that's better than, more efficient than, more optimal than what I'm currently doing today, right? What's the advantage of choosing these behaviors and using this over what I'm doing today? And of course, compatibility, right? How does this align with the current practice that I'm doing today? How does it align to my curriculum? How does it align to the resources I have or the tools that I have in my classroom? How does it align to my methodology of teaching in the context of my classroom? And of course, complexity is a big one, right? Which is, how hard is it going to be for me to start trying this and using it on a regular basis? Is it going to be like a lot of hiccups? Am I going to look like an idiot in front of the classroom? And of course, there's other pieces too, like, can I try it before I commit to it? How easy is it for me to get a taste if this is something that's relevant and valuable for me and that there's an advantage for? So these different things come through the teacher's mind. This is the contemplation phase. And shortly after, they form an opinion. And that opinion is either, yes, I want to seek more information, or I want to get my hands on it, I want to try it, and they get going, or, it doesn't seem like something that aligns with me right now, and it's just not something that I'm into. And so there's this, decision phase that happens pretty much immediately after when they form an opinion. And then what happens next determines whether or not they engage with the technology, with the smartboard or not. So this next stage is important because, this is the implementation stage. And usually if someone's seeking more information, and in some cases in districts, whether you've decided you liked it or not, they throw you into a PD session to get more information. And you have someone there, right, that's actually, teaching you. This guy's actually sitting there teaching you, telling you more information, trying to give you, satisfying your curiosity for what's the advantage and how easy it is for you. And at this stage, some interesting things happen. So during this implementation phase, you either do one of two things. Either you say, yes, this is something that I want to, try and experiment with and start using my classroom to verify these thoughts that I had. Or you're saying, what, this is still something that's not for me, right? So even though you might be forced into, getting more information, you still might decide it's not for you. Or maybe you decided, yeah, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it a shot. Someone's guided me with some great great ideas to get started. Now, the key with the implementation phase is that it lasts quite a bit, and people flip-flop between whether or not, they've decided to start using it, and then they decide whether this is really good or really useful, and so they continue using it, right? So this is continued adoption. These are people who are repeat users and use it on a frequent basis. But at the same time, even after they start using it, they could discontinue their use. It's called discontinuance. People thought, yeah, this seems like something cool and something good that would add value in my classroom. But then as they start using it, they realize it's either too complex or there is no relative advantage. It's not as advantageous as what they did before. There's too many complexities to it. It breaks down all the time. There's not enough content or resources, whatever it is, they decide to stop using it. Now, the flip is also true, right? You have someone who decided not to use it, but then as they see other people using it, or as the publisher starts creating more content and makes it easier for that person and relieves some of the uncertainty, associated to why they decided not to use it, then they actually start picking it up and using it. Right. And this is irrespective of age, right? We have teachers that are about to retire, and it's a crazy story. I was at a conference, I'm sitting in a session, and it was for administrators, and she says to me, I'm a teacher, I really shouldn't have been in the session, but I got to tell you my story. And her story is basically, she was 2 years to retirement. Principal put a smartboard in her classroom. She refused. She's like, I'd rather teach another grade. Principal forced her. Anyways, 3 months into it, She started playing with it, loved it. So she was someone who didn't like it, right? She was a non-adopter, and then eventually started using it and loves it, swears by it, got one for her kids at home. So the reality is, whether you start using it and continue using it, or you don't use it and you continue to decide not to use it, or you flip-flop in between, this explains why some people continue, and you see people using this new technology, the smartboard in the classroom, and some people do not. Now, the factors that are at play in determining how many people, continue using, has to do with this last phase. It also has to do with external things that happen. And I'll talk about those two things in a moment. Now, this last phase is the confirmation phase. So whether or not this teacher decided to use it or not to use it, what generally happens is they start becoming vocal, right? So they'll either say things like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. This smartboard's changed my life. And they start sharing with other people and talking about it. And it's to get confirmation to see how their peers respond. So some of them would be like, hey, what's that? Wow, that sounds cool. That sounds like exciting. And wow, I want to learn about that. And that kind of confirms that their value that they're getting is interesting to others, and other people are starting to see that value. And that's why professional learning communities are so important, because you get these like-minded people who start feeding off each other and pushing themselves in terms of how they use the technology. And at the same time, you could have someone that, gets on that megaphone and says, this sucks, right? Like, this is the horrible experience, right? So they started using it, and then they stop using it, and they start sharing with other people, I could do this better with this technology or that technology. And that's confirming too, right? Because they want to hear from people, really? But I use it this way, and this is the value that I get, or, oh, you know what? Yeah, now that I think about it, you're right. So this last phase kind of confirms that person's decision, or actually helps them switch back to a previous decision. So that confirmation stage and being attuned to what the teachers are kind of vocalizing is super, super important. Now, I mentioned there's other factors that are at play here, right? So when we look at this whole process, what Everett Rogers calls the innovation decision process, teachers pass through these different phases, and the length of time it takes teachers at these different phases varies. In fact, I'll probably create another YouTube video to talk about that. I'll probably put the link somewhere over here. Now, the factors that can influence how long it takes people to go through these phases, or actually influence what stage a teacher's at and whether they decide to continue using or not, has to do with what Everett Rogers calls change agents. And this is actually a new role that actually came up and is more prevalent in schools across the globe, is this coach, technology coach, technology mentor, instructional technology support person. Basically, it's someone who is not just a techie, but gets curriculum and can work with a teacher and support them. And the whole job of this, change agent, or this, support person, is to help people go through these phases. And really, success for these change agents, and I know this, I was one of these, I used to support all the school districts in Ontario as they were adopting technology. The end goal is to try to decrease the amount of time that it takes for a mass group of people to go through these process. At the same time, you want to optimize, the number of people. You're going to get the most number of people in the district going through this process in the shortest amount of time. And of course, you can't forget that success is also about minimizing discontinuance, right? If the school board had decided and did their research and their evidence on, if we get a mass group of teachers doing this practice, it'll do amazing things for our schools, and then you pick the right tools and the right technologies and the right processes, then you want as many people to go through this. And so the change agent's job, or this technology mentor or coach, whatever you want to call them, their job is to get as many people in a shorter period of time going through this process and not discontinuing the use, right? To continue using it. And so the role of this person, but also the role of technology, right? So those of you, and myself included, that's involved in the tech world, that makes decisions about products and features and all the different services wrapped around it, we have to be super attuned to that particular technology at all these different phases of the awareness phase, how easy we're going to make it so that when a teacher becomes aware, it's immediately easy to see the relative advantage, how compatible it is, the complexity of it. As they're going through the implementation, how easy do we make resources and content for those who aren't comfortable creating content, that it's already there available. So transitions them as smoothly as possible. And then what do you do? Because everybody's going to get stuck and everybody's at different levels of tech competence. So what do you do to support those people to decrease the time it takes for them to get to that confirmation stage? And of course, what are you doing at the confirmation stage, right? To help those share with that insight and that learning with each other. So Why do I share this with you? I share this with you so that you get insight as to, why you walk down any classroom, in any school in the world today, and whether it's a blackboard or as high tech as classroom with devices and interactive displays in the classroom, you might wonder, why are they using it and why are they not using it? Well, it's complex. It's a process that teachers go through, and these decisions as to why they use it and why they don't use it. And it's the supports around them and the technologies themselves that either enable them to see the value and to continue its use or not. So with that, subscribe to get more videos, and I'll put some links at the bottom of this page so you can get what the follow-up video for this sequence, this series of videos is. Cheers.